We love hard, we work hard, we play hard. That's what life is about. Loving who you're with and what you're doing. I couldn't ask for a better partner or a better husband.
So welcome back. We're here talking to Sydney, and I think right before we went on break, you had asked Sydney a question and you need to gather those thoughts.
Yes. So my question was just to reiterate, what made you stay? Simply as that.
It was basically, I guess I felt like because he was there for me in the beginning when I lost my family, that I owed him that. So that's where I guess it was like I was trying to be loyal, and because I went through those times or whatever, and he was there for me during that time, and because I had thought about leaving, but then I'm like, okay, well, he was there for you, and then you go back to thinking about how it was before, so you're thinking you can go back to that era,
Yeah.
But like I said, not knowing, so many occurrences had transpired that.
That's what I say. So at this point, you're 2.5 years in, right?
Yeah.
So when does it get to be too much? You're like, I gotta get out. Like when you start feeling, I gotta get out. Like, what happened to make you be like, all right now, and I'm paying my dues, whatever. It's time to get out, or I'm feeling these thoughts. Like, when did that start happening for you?
It started when I guess I started to question the relationship, and then I started to question, like, am I a bad person?
Are you a bad person?
Right.
Because you deserve this.
What's the thought process behind that? You questioning yourself.
Because it was like, okay, well, are you maybe asking or saying things, or what are your actions? Yeah, am I provoking him in a certain way? And I was just thinking, I'm like, well, these are questions or these are just like conversations or things that, I can ask a friend or a family member. So, and we're together we're together, and I can't ask you certain things, to where if I wasn't giving you the answer, or I wasn't appeasing you, that you would get that upset with me, and then it would cause like just a dramatic argument with us. So I started doing that, and then I was kind of getting stuff from like my friends, like, well, you don't come around, we don't do this,
Had you shared with anybody what you were going through at this point?
No.
Nobody.
Because I was always the strong person out of the group of friends.
You had to keep your image.
Right. And I'm like, okay, like Tamia said, you have to put on your makeup.
Yeah.
So, when I was around them, I had to, I would have to sneak to go and see them.
Did you feel like you was in an abusive relationship?
At that point, no.
So when did you start feeling like, I am being abused, I need to get out of this relationship?
I think this was the second worst incident that happened. I was at home, and we were sitting on the sofa. It was an argument about, I can't even remember which show it was that I was watching at the time. I think it was the gay show that we had. The Queer Folks.
Oh, Queer
Folks.
Folks.
It was during that age.
Okay.
But anyway, and I wanted to see it, and he wasn't really into stuff like that. I wanted to see it, so he came in and just clicked the channel on what he wanted, and I'm like, well, I'm watching that, and so it just was back and forth, and so I clicked it back on my show. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so it just escalated from there. That turned into an argument, and he basically got the remote. He threw it at me. It had hit me in my head, and so I got it and I threw it back at him. At this time.
Was this the first time you ever hit back?
Yes.
Okay.
Because and I wasn't even taking it. I think he was just like, well, okay, how like kids do. They just
You didn't take it as him hitting you.
right.
Right.
So I sat on the sofa, and I laid back as I was laying back on the sofa, and the next thing I know, I just got a hit across my face.
With his fist.
Yes. And so I just got up, and at this point I was bleeding, and I got up, and I was actually crawling because I was so stunned. I was crawling to my bedroom. Then he had kicked me, and then he had got on top of me, and he just started pounding my face.
Wow.
And at this point, I could just see blood everywhere on the carpet and stuff. We had tan carpet, so it was just like everywhere. And I'm just there in tears and just crying, like, trying to figure out, okay, what just happened?
Right.
And so I crawled and I went in the restroom. At this point, I'm cussing because I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, I'm scared, but I'm pissed off, and I'm still trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah.
So he was just it went to the point where he basically had drugged me into the bathroom, and he hit me one more time. It was in my head, and then he slapped me, and I was slapped on the other side because this side was basically just bloodied up, and I had a gash in my head, and he pulled me in the bathroom, and he pulled out his penis and just urinated on me while I was in the bathroom.
Is he saying things at this point too? Is he yelling or?
He's basically talking about, he was at that point in time, he was telling me that I'm stupid, I didn't want to watch that shit, if you want to watch that shit, then you watch it on, when in the bedroom. I want to come home, I want to watch this. And we have never really had that type of argument before over some, just that petty. Well, we did, but to me that was just the pettiest.
Right.
And it just caused him such, and I just sit there, the thing of it was, I'm like, I remember asking him the question, I'm like, well, do you even love me? I mean, why am I here? He told me, what he told me at that time was that if I loved him, he said what? No, he asked me, well, do you love me? And I told him, well, yeah, I do. And he told me at that point in time, well, what you need to do with your feelings is to fold them up and put them in your back pocket. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting here, why do you have me? Why am I here then? You haven't talked about, leaving or, going our separate ways or any of that. So, I mean, all this stuff is just going. So I sat in the bathroom, I know at least about an hour and a half, and I was just crying and just trying to figure out what happened.
Did you think to call the police?
No, none of that had even crossed my mind. And
Just something you had to deal with.
Right. I'm just like, I was such in a shock on what's going on and the fighting and the cold.
The urination is like after he, pissed on you. What did he do?
He just got up and he shut the door and he left. And I think maybe like an hour and a half, it's like maybe 3 hours later he came back. During that time, I think maybe like an hour, maybe 2 hours after being on the bathroom floor, just wondering and crying and just thinking, and I finally got up and I looked at myself in the mirror and my face was just like, it was just, I couldn't even see myself basically.
How did you come back from that?
God, I just, for a while, it took a long time for me to come back from that. Luckily, it was on a Friday. I remember it being on a Friday, and I was trying to get myself back in order because I didn't know when he came back home what was going to happen next. I knew I couldn't go home because my mom had no idea. I couldn't go home and say, look at me. I know she had been through abusive relationship before, and I just didn't want anybody to know. I was like, what would people think if they knew that I had just gotten beaten up? I'm like, it was such a shock to me because that wasn't my personality. I wasn't the type of person to just let somebody just beat on me, wasn't. So.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because this is something we haven't talked about. We've just talked about, him being abusive and all the bad things, but was the relationship, did it ever feel good? Was he ever loving? Were you guys intimate? What was there another side where he was so showing you and loving you? Did you ever feel any of that, or was it all bad all the time?
No, it was like some days were good, and that's what confused me, because it was like some days were good, things would go fine, and I started to see a little bit of change and a little bit of happiness within the relationship when I started to alter myself. It was basically I had to alter to him.
Right. As long as you didn't make him upset or do anything upset, no matter how small or big that was, things were going pretty good.
And even when I did say something or whatever, where he may have said a comment, I wouldn't question. I'll just leave it alone.
So it begs the question to me: are things really good if you are having to conform to his every whim, or silence yourself, or censor yourself? Are things really good?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't healthy, and it wasn't good for me, because I had to think. But it was just like, think before you do anything. Before I said something, I had to think, okay, is he gonna get mad if I say this? Is this gonna cause an argument? I mean, just all this was just rolling in my head. So I wouldn't really say much at home. I became real quiet, and that's probably what you guys have met. I had to, I had to really just watch and just, it was like stepping on eggshells, basically.
You were in prison in your own home.
And that's actually what I called it.
Mentally and physically.
I was.
Yeah. On that note, we're going to take another small break, and we'll be back, and we'll examine more of the reasons why you stay, because I do want to revisit that, because I have some more questions. Okay, so we'll be right back.
And we want to get to when you leave this bastard.
Okay.
Yes. When we come back, we're going to find out how Sydney left him, finally.
We are back here on Love Works. We're talking to Sydney about the topic of domestic violence, and he's been sharing with us his experience. And before we broke, we said that we were going to talk about why you stay. Now, we're part of a lot of Facebook groups. You read blogs, and I think this topic comes up every once in a while, and between two men, I don't think people kind of look at it as domestic violence, because two men fighting is natural, it's macho, it's bravado. So we don't put that label, and people may not recognize that they may be in a domestically violent relationship. And so, did that ever go through your mind that, oh well, I am a man, he's a man, I can take it, or this is okay because we're both men? Did those thoughts ever cross your mind?
It did. It did. Because I knew that we were gay, basically, and I'm like, okay. I never thought I didn't know anybody who had really experienced it or went through it or had even heard of two males basically having like this abusive relationship. Of course, you see a fight, over something in the street or whatever, but just like being at home and to the extent where I experienced it, I know it was, but I did question myself about that. So yeah.
So when did you decide to leave him? Like, what was the last incident? When did you get the courage? How did you do it? Tell us about that process.
The point that the thing that really made me leave was just the last incident when we really had our like bad fight. Was I had a friend who he passed away later, but it was when I first met him. Actually, we did have a small incident before then that I didn't speak of, but it was an incident where I had one of my best friends had passed away. No, it was actually during the relationship, I'm sorry. He had passed, before he passed away, we went to this place. It was a grand opening of this restaurant, and it was all of my friends, and he was there with us. And We sat down, we were having drinks and had food. We were there maybe about 30 minutes. Even the owner who came over, he introduced himself to my group of friends and wanted to take a picture to put up on his website. Because I had it was, with multicultural bunch of friends.
Right.
So he took the picture, and like shortly afterwards, he didn't want to take the picture. He didn't want to get in the picture, so it was like, okay. So my friends just kind of thought that was a little bit weird. He felt uncomfortable, so he wanted to go. So I wasn't mad. I was mad, but I was just like hurt because I'm like, okay, this is my time to spend with my friends.
Right.
We're here, and now I have to go. So the guy got my information, and he wound up sending me the photo. So I printed it out, and this was somewhere in between the relationship or whatever. And I had the picture, and and this was my friend. He passed away later, and I had this picture when it was in a box. Or whatever. But anyway, during that time afterwards, when I put the photo in the box or whatever and just kind of like forgot about it, then we had some other event that his family was having, and I went with him to that event, and on the way coming home, we got into kind of like an argument about something that happened with his stepfather and grandfather, whatever. And because he wanted to know what my opinion was, who was right, who was wrong, whatever. So I gave him that. We got home, and because he didn't like my answer.
That seems to be a pattern as well, right? He doesn't like anything that you say.
Right. And I basically kept it mutual. I just told him, people say certain things they'll forget about. But he wanted to really know my opinion. And it was just like bothering him. So I was just kind of sweeping under the rug because I know how
you already know how to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, it was just like he didn't like it. He got real combative with it and wanted to know. So I was like, okay, well, I told him what I thought was wrong. He didn't like it. Started fighting. And at this point, it was just like he was really fighting me, and I started to fight him back. And it was to the point where I had to just cold cock him, like the old people say. I had to cold cock him. And I just remember,
in the back of the car,
I had to hit him, and I just know I hit him really good, and I took off running. I was running out my apartment down in our driveway, and I was just running and running. And and I took my keys, and later on I wound up coming back or whatever, and I saw that he left. So I went back in, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know what to do at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I done hit him back, and I'm like, oh my God, this
What is this
was
gonna
the
do
first
now?
time. Yeah.
First time you hit back.
Right.
Was there some sort of? I know you just said like you didn't know what to do. Was that a victory of some sort?
It was more because I knew what he had done to me previously that I know I needed to fight back, because I didn't fight. I could have fought him back, but I just, in my mind, you don't fight people who you love. So I didn't, I didn't fight him.
Now you're starting to hate him.
Right.
So,
and it was to the point, I loved him, but then I hated him. It was like this love-hate type of situation going on, because I just felt like I was just getting such the bad end of the stick, and I'm like, I couldn't do anything right. I had the thing with the cousin incident, isolated from my family. All this was just like going through my head. And so, it was just starting to fight back at this point. So at this point, I was in the house, and he called me, and he was like, well, he said, I'm sorry for hitting you or whatever, it's stupid or whatever. He said, I'm not going to hit you again. And you need to come back home. And at this point, I'm like, well, okay, I'll be back later. Knowing I was already at home, but I was trying to give him time to cool off. I didn't want him to know I was there.
Right.
He was out looking for me, and so finally he came home, and so I went to bed that night. And later in the night, he pulled me out the bed and started fighting me.
Just
out the blue. And so that's when I started to. After kind of getting surpassed that, I was like, I wouldn't sleep at night because I was fearful of
him waking you up again.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started kind of sleeping like at work, you know, or like on my lunch break, and I was just, just tired. He got to the point where he stopped speaking to me, and at this point in time, I was kind of trying to fight back where, at this point he wasn't speaking to me. I wouldn't give him any money because he kind of got laid off of one of his jobs, and I was like, you know what? I need him to appreciate me.
Yeah.
So I bought this cooler. I know this may sound funny, but I bought this cooler and I put it in my trunk. And I stopped buying food for the house because I was always the person that it got to the point, and it was
you were
like
starving him.
Basically, I was to the point because he wasn't speaking to me, and I would speak to him and say, "Hey, how was your day?" He wouldn't say anything to me. So I'm like, you know what? I can't. I'm not gonna just give you money and then not speak to me. So anyway, I stopped buying stuff for the house. It got to the point where I think he was having to pay some bills because he had too much pride. He wouldn't ask me for it. So it was to the point where we had 2 canned goods left in the house. I remember it was a can of corn and some beans that he ate, and he ate that the last day. And then it was to the point like the next day he was so hungry, and he was like, "Babe, can you give me $2 to get me something from a hamburger or something?" So I'm like, okay, now he's speaking. So I went over and gave him $2. I know it sounds petty, but it was. I had to.
I want to just, because I didn't know that this was going to go down this road. So you're living in a house with someone, and you have your food, and you've been with this person over 3 years.
Right.
You have your food in your trunk, and the cabinets are bare, and y'all are walking around not speaking to each other.
Right. Well, I would speak to him, but he wasn't speaking to me.
And how long did this go on? Long enough for the cabinets to get
right.
bare.
It was 4 weeks. 4 weeks. It was 4 weeks, and I remember it was 4 weeks, and because I wouldn't buy a whole lot of stuff, I would buy stuff here out there and just fill it up and then restock. And it just got to the point, I was like, if he's not going, I'm not going to buy anything else. And I started eating out. That's actually where I started to kind of gain a little bit of weight at that time, because I was eating out before I would come home. I would just go and get something to eat. I kept, like, if I needed to eat or drink something, I would keep something like Lunchables or something in my trunk, and the water, and the ice chest. I would go, before I come home, I would just go and buy a bag of ice, put it in the cooler. If I needed to go get something to drink, I would go to my trunk in the middle of the night, sit on the steps at the apartments and drink my water, throw it away, and then go back in the house.
So y'all would never discuss it either? Like, why is there no food in the house? Y'all really weren't communicating?
No, he wouldn't talk to me.
He wouldn't talk to you, so...
And to be honest with you, I was glad because I had a relief. I was still sleeping because I knew what was going on. I was so stressed to sleep at night because I didn't know. I was thinking, even should I keep a knife under my pillow or somewhere near, just something. But yeah, I would sleep at work, and I would eat before I come home and get my ice and my food before I come home. And and that's how I lived for 4 weeks. I mean, it was that way. That's how stubborn he was. He was just that stubborn. And so finally he broke the mold and
that's what
he
asked for $2.
He asked for $2, so we started speaking. And then after that point, I mean, it was just one more kind of like pushing and shoving, and it was to the point at that time I'm like, I can't do this. And I asked him when we started talking, I mean, do you want to end this?
So you were still taking his feelings into consideration
right.
at this point?
Because I was scared to say, well, if I leave, I didn't know what the reaction was going to be for me. So I wanted to get his opinion. I had learned how to manipulate the system, basically.
You kind of had hope that he was ready to end it too.
Right. In a sense. And, I still loved him, but I'm like, at that point, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody. The person I was confiding in couldn't, he had betrayed me, and it was basically I had to think and answer my own questions or my own thoughts and feelings or whatever. But it got to that point, and it was just to the point where I was just even so scared to even say, that I was going to leave. I wound up writing him a letter. And I gave him that letter, and I basically told him that we had 2 months left. It was just 2 months, and I was to the point I just couldn't do it anymore.
On your lease.
On the lease. And I said, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I told him, we were sitting down, and I sat by the door. That was the only way I would talk to him, because he wanted to discuss it. So I made him sit on the sofa, which was far against the wall, and I sat by the door in a chair just like this.
So you can run the hell out the door when something about to turn, yeah.
It was just to that point.
Yeah.
So, and I told him to leave the door. I had to keep the door unlocked. So if I need to beeline out, I could.
Right.
But anyway, we had the conversation, and I told him that I said I have done everything. I've been nice. I haven't been around my family. I haven't been around my friends. I'm constantly going around yours, which I felt like the situation was unfair. I was basically doing everything that you wanted, and I just told him I felt, just looking back, that I have completely lost who I was. And I needed to get myself back to who I was. I need to find out at this point who I am.
Right.
And so he told me, he said, well, you're not going anywhere. You're not moving. And that was basically it.
Is he saying this to you in a way of, you don't even do nothing? That kind of thing, or he's like, no, you can't leave, or you can't leave me, or he just think you're not serious?
Right, he was thinking I was not
He
serious.
thought you were just talking shit.
Right.
Okay.
He told me, he said, you're not going nowhere. It was just basically, just calm and cool. Like, you're not going anywhere or whatever, we're going to be fine. And he was like, I told you I'm not going to, hit you anymore.
Even though he's continued to do it.
And at this point in time, I'm just like, I was just hoping, it was to the point, I'm not going to even lie to you, and this sounds bad, but I was just hoping he would just go and cheat and find somebody.
Like, just take the attention off of you.
And it really, to be honest with you, it was just like, I didn't care what he did at this point, because I was so, he had done everything to me that a person could possibly do for us, do you in, for us, my family, my friends, the abuse, embarrassment, self-esteem was gone, change of clothes, I went to dark colors, I didn't want, just certain things that made me who I am, just made my day, like for us getting a pedicure, manicure, going shopping, all that was just completely cut. I had no desire for it.
You were depressed.
Basically, yes.
Right, low self-esteem.
All that. And, just scared to go out in public with friends, because I was thinking I had this sign in my face, that, and my mom, I don't know why, but the reason why I couldn't go around, my mom is a good reader, and she would know my expression. She could tell something's not right. And in the time I actually did take her to the grocery store, she was like, something's not right with you, because you haven't been around, and your whole demeanor is just so different. And she said, I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is, she said, you can talk to me. And so she knew something was going on, but she didn't know what it was.
Right. And
so I just had all that. So once she told me that, it just put a sense up to okay, well, can people just see this? That I have this, looks like a scarlet A, they just see it. So, it was to that point where I, just started really thinking, and I started to go into church with my female friend I was confiding in before, and it was just so funny because when I would go to church, certain things that I had questioned on why I was going to church, and it was like the pastor was just talking to me every week.
Now, at this point, just to go back, when you had this conversation with him about leaving him, you're at the door. You had already left him.
No, I actually was giving him a 30-day notice to leave.
Oh, you was giving him 30 for him to leave the apartment?
No, for me. I was telling him I was going to leave.
In 30 days?
Yeah, because, and what for us the 30 days, basically I didn't really go into the letter. It was basically the letter saying that I would pay for the rent for the last 2 months. I didn't want to renew it with him. I basically kind of wanted to move back home to my mom.
So, you wrote a letter, gave it to him, having this conversation, with the thought that you're going to still stay in this house with him for 30 days?
Yeah, because my thing was, Um, we had to give I think it was a 60-day notice.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to give that. And
So you had to decide what you want to do with the lease anyway, so
right.
this was a conversation.
So
got you.
my thing was like, I couldn't take it anymore. And I just said, well, the 30 days, I said, with me being fair, I didn't want an argument. So I said, well, let me just pay for the last 2 months. I'll pay for the utilities for these last 2 months. And that way, the only thing you would have to do is save your money for these 2 months, and then you can either move wherever you want it to. But I can't do it.
So you're basically breaking up with him.
Basically, yes.
So you had the conversation, y'all broke up.
No.
But what was
now in his eyes, we weren't.
That's where my confusion is coming in, because you're saying I want to break up, I don't want to be with you anymore, I don't want to live with you anymore. Yet we're gonna ride out these last 2 months or this next 30 days.
Well, yeah, it was the 30 days.
How did you think that would go? Like a week from then, or 2 weeks down the road?
Well, with the approach of me thinking like, okay, well, if I pay this up, obviously you're not happy and I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, he should be happy with this. Because I came up with all kind of ways to just whatever. I even told him all the stuff that I had bought in the apartment he could have. I didn't want anything. I said, all I want is my clothes. I don't want anything. You can have everything. And that's basically how I felt. And I understand that. When I tell you a peace of mind and a peace of sleep, you just don't know.
Yeah.
It was just a blessing to have that. Once I moved out, and once it was.
And so you did move out after the 2 months. The lease was up. You moved.
Mm-hmm.
Any abuse for the next 2 months?
It wasn't abuse, but I got hassled because at that time I was working from home. I had transitioned where I was working from home, and I had a desk that my employer had me set up in the house where I could work.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to get her equipment out. And so he gave me trouble getting the equipment out. And, she kept asking me, well, when are you going to bring, get the stuff, I can get the truck and have them to come and pick it up and, bring it to the office or whatever. And I kept having delay. She knew something more was going on, but she knew something was going on, but she didn't know to the extent of it was. And I kept trying to communicate with him. And during this time, I think he started to see somebody. He was starting to see somebody. And I went to the apartment for like one last time. And him and this guy was kind of walked upstairs or whatever. And so he stood outside and we talked or whatever. And the guy was standing outside, and I just went to the guy and said, look, I'm not trying to, come in between you guys. I said, I just want to get my work equipment out of here, and that's it.
It was probably good that guy was there. Huh?
Yeah. But that's basically what it was. I told the guy, I said, I mean no harm at all. I said, we're not together. I wish you guys. I was wanting to reassure this guy, you don't have to worry about me.
You have him. Right.
I just wanted to get that, and he would not give it to me. And even him and the guy they really didn't argue, but he was like, why don't you just give this man his stuff? And so he told him, no, you need to just go upstairs, let me discuss this with him. So at this point, I just knew I wasn't going to get my stuff. And luckily, my next door neighbor, we would always speak. It was a husband and a wife, or a straight couple. They lived next door, and as soon as he went upstairs, the lady was saying, Sydney, come in the house. Mm-hmm. So I went in the house, and so she started talking. She said, I'm so glad. She said, I haven't seen you. And because at this point I had moved. Yeah. She was like, I hadn't seen you in 3 weeks. They could hear the abuse that was
so they didn't know what happened to you.
Right. She was like, she said, me and my husband, he didn't know if the guy had killed you or what. She said we would hear it, and so many times we wanted to go over and and we wanted to call the police to see, what was going on. And but she said I just watched. She was always watching for me. She said I wanted to say something so bad, but I just didn't want to get in the middle of it. And but she sat there and she was like, she said, I'm so glad that you decided to move, because she was like, to the point with hearing all the things that was going on, she said, I'm just surprised. She said, that she was like, at night, I would think that, you know, there was going to be a paramedics coming and toting you out of the house.
Wow.
That's just how bad it was. And so we sat there with them for maybe like an hour just discussing. And but she wished me well, and she told me, she said, what you need to do, because I was telling her about my desk, and she's like, just go to your employer and just let them know that you know, she said either just be honest with them or just tell them that you can't get it. And so the next day I wound up having to go to my employer and tell her I can't do it. And I went through it, and she said, she sat me down, she said, well, I'm just tell you this, if you would have told me this a long time ago, she said, I would have told you, if he think that keeping that desk is going to either get you back in there or keep a hold on you, she said they didn't let him have that stuff. She said because you know, you dying behind this equipment is not even worth it. She said, I'll buy another one. So once she told me, it was just like a weight lifted off me.
So at this point, y'all, done.
Right,
You've left.
I've left.
No going back. It's over.
It was no going back.
And so I was going to say that's a good stopping point, because now y'all broken up. Now after this break, I want to get into now my